Hello, my name is Joanne Marie Rumford, and I'm doing this video in my apartment in Port Huron, Michigan. And this morning is Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. I'm doing this video um, because it's about, actually, it's back in the 1970s. Um, and where I worked at. Um, and I've got like, wrote this out last night, but I dated it for today, October 7th. So this is the one page here, page one, and this is page two. And it's not scribbled because I took my time writing it, but the ink is not very dark on the page. So I might have to use my magnifying glass. That's page three. And this is page four. Okay, so I'll begin to read it because I'm going to have to read the whole thing. Uh, and I'll probably have to use my magnifying, I'll probably have to use the clipboard to read it too. So, well, I can't do the top there, cover that part up. I won't be able to see it. So I'll have to use my magnifying glass to read it. Okay, here I go. Page one. At Pine Knob Outdoor Music Theater in Clarkston, Michigan, I went with my boyfriend. Actually, we were just we just met. Or we didn't just meet, but I don't know if that's my first date with him or how long we were dating, but I met him in 1972. Um, and my boyfriend, Michael Yergelite, who I met at the filling station lounge where I worked as a waitress in Detroit, Michigan in 1972. I was 18 years of age when I stayed overnight with singer Andy Williams at the Kingsley Inn after he performed at Pine Knob in the summer of 1972. I saw his show there that week with Michael Yergelite, then went back with my cousin Ron Oliver to see the show again in the evening. When I went back with Ron Oliver, we both went to the stage with the other fans of Andy Williams, and I jumped onto the stage and gave Andy Williams a hug. I guess you could say it was kind of like out of the scene of the Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, where Captain Kirk, uh, character Captain Kirk says, "Beam me up, Scotty." And Jillian or Gillian, the actress, character's name, Gillian, puts her arms, jumps up, puts her arms around his neck and that, and she says, "Surprise." Of course, I didn't say that to Andy Williams when I went up there, but on the stage, but it's kind of like that scene in that movie. And that movie was in 1986. So um, I gave him a hug, and then he took me back to the dressing room. I said to I said to him, "I love you." And he asked how old I was. I said I was 18. The bodyguard, or whoever the man was with him, his tall guy, um, and he drew me a map on a piece of paper when Andy Williams asked him to. It was directions to the Kingsley Inn in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. My cousin Ron dropped me off at the hotel on the right on at the hotel. Now in the room, he left the room. There was another gentleman in the lobby coming up with him, and I was at the front of his door because there's like a two-story floor, and so I guess that was my surprise when I guess I don't know if he thought I'd be showing up or not, but um, uh, the other guy, I think he was wearing horn rim glasses or something. He looked older than Andy Williams. Anyways, Andy took me into his room, and Andy Williams said he's got to leave for a second, probably to talk to the man out there, but um, maybe he was having company, his company, but to discuss whatever. And so when I was in the room, I noticed on the right side of the bed, um, on the nightstand, there was a book, and this is the book, and I have it here. I bought this not too long ago, um, and this book here is a 1970. It was published in 1971, but this book is 1972, so I don't know what the copyright was of his paperback book was, but it's the best-selling biography of Mrs. Robert F. Kennedy, and it's Ethel by Lester David. Now, I bought this recently used, um, not recently, but a little while back, and it's interesting because at the time, Andy Williams, I think he was estranged from his wife, and uh, I don't know what the story was back then. I didn't know the story back then, the whole story about his wife and that. So I uh, thought he was, available. So, and being a fan of his music, I really loved his music because he sang songs from the from in the movies. All the movies that were out back then at that time were songs he sang. Um, so this book he had on his nightstand on the right side of the bed. Um, okay, now let's see. Okay, I said that already. Okay, I had to do some writing on the side of the note here. Okay, from his room at the hotel, there was a swimming pool, and I looked out, and the swimming pool is vertical. That's where his room was on the second floor. It was looking down at the pool, but it was vertical. It wasn't like horizontal. The horizontal is a vertical view. So, uh, and my cousin Ron picked me up after I called him that next morning, and Andy asked me who Ron was when I called on his phone in the room, and I said he was my cousin. Okay, so page two. Page two. Okay, I'm already said that. Not sure if his book was 1971. The book I ordered a while back, paperback used, is 72 copyright. Now on the stage that night, the night before, at the concert at Pine Knob, he was wearing all white, and I'm not sure if he wore all white to the first show we went to when I went with Michael Yergolite. Um, but I was wearing white too. I had white pants and a white top, but the only color on my top was red little buttons I had along the collar, um, or the neckline, little red buttons. Uh, Now on the stage that night, when he brought me out of the dressing room back on the stage, a million camera flashes were going off. People in the audience were taking photos with their cameras. So there's a lot of photos that people have of that 1972 concert that I was at the second show I went to, um, with me and Andy on the stage. Um, and my cousin Ron, he had camera too, and he took pictures. Um, I believe it was my camera. Okay. Um, well, I'm not sure if it was my camera or his camera because he took the film to get it developed the next day, and he brought me the pictures over. Excuse me. Okay. So I looked up at the night sky, and there were many stars, and I waved to the audience. I jumped off the stage, and my cousin Ron took photos when I was on the stage with Andy Williams. Now, when I was on the stage, when I was looking up at the sky, because you could see the sky from the stage, right? Because it's an outdoor theater. And I thought to myself, what if, like, like there's you make a contact from up there, up in the night sky, UFO or whatever, that you never know, like it could beam down and see what's going on the stage, and then you look up and you wave at the audience, and then which I did, and it's kind of like, is there life out there, aliens? So I was thinking that when I was on the stage. Okay, and also the song "The Exodus." Uh, I liked the song, the Exodus song that Andy sang in that movie, or from that movie. Forgot the name of the movie, but it was called the Exodus song. Uh, in which that night in the room he sang me some songs because I asked him to. I can't remember what the songs were he sang, but I asked him to sing. But um, I no longer have the photos or the map, but there are those in the audience that have photos. There was an article about it in the newspaper, but I never read it or knew the writer or reporter who wrote it or the name of the newspaper. Now, later on, when I was married and living in Florida, my husband and I didn't know my husband then back then in 72, but my boyfriend, then we got married, but we moved to Florida and bought a new house in Clearwater, Florida in 1981. The mortgage papers were signed. We signed them on April 1st, 1981. And I met Andy again and I'll read it to you. I met Andy Williams again when my husband, Richard Joseph Dick, quotation marks, Toucher, and I bought our house in Clearwater, Florida, where we signed the paperwork on April 1st, 1981. My coworker at Concept Incorporated, Inc., INC, um, on Highway 19, she and I drove to see Andy Williams in one of his purple color buildings in St. Petersburg, Florida. I think it was in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm the one that drove, so um, and after the show was over, we sat way up there in the balcony on the top. Could hardly make them out on the stage. Anyways, uh, see, I was born in 1954 and 1981, so that's almost like 10 years since the first time I met him on the stage at Pine Knob. Uh, After the show in Florida, his fans, including Linda, my coworker at Concept Inc. Incorporated, and I signed, and me, he signed my copy of the show's program. I asked him if he remembered me, He said yes, uh, but he did not look up. He was then shuffled off with many bodyguards into a car. Okay, page 3. After I left the filling station lounge on 7 Mile and Greenfield in Detroit as a waitress, I went to work as a go-go dancer at Benson's Lounge on the east side of Detroit. I lived in my parents' house with my parents and my sister on the west side of Detroit. And Benson's was on the east side of Detroit. Now, going back to the filling station lounge, Michael Yergelite is where I met him. He came in one night by himself and sat in a booth, and I waited on him, and that's when I first met him. Okay, now back going ahead into soon after I got the job, right after that waitress job at the filling station, I went to work at Benson's. And there was the manager of Benson's was Michael Gajewski. He Gajewski. Now Michael's last name is Yerglite, Yurgalite. Okay, so Gajewski's that's Michael Gajewski's last name is Gajewski. He later opened up his own go-go bar on 8 Mile near Highway I-75, where the bar was called Michael G's. I went to work there as a dancer after Benson's, but first, between the two jobs, I was working selling magazines at a building in Southfield for a very short time. Um, I could never sell. I couldn't sell the magazines. I just had a hard time selling magazines over the telephone. I really have a hard time selling anything. So, okay, so uh, okay, Southfield, Michigan. This was in mid 1970s. Okay, this was in mid 1970s. So we went from 1972 to mid 1970s, where I was working at Michael G's. Now, one night I was not scheduled to work at Michael G's. And in the parking lot there, my boss, which is Mike, Michael Gajewski, um, went out to start his car. He had a light blue either Mark 4 or 5. I'm not sure what year that was, but it was a new car. And he always started his cars with the driver's door open because one time he found dynamite in the front hood of his car. Um, and I didn't write that down, but at Benson's, I took his car out. He asked me to take it because I was waiting on tables at Benson's for a while there afterwards. I quit dancing and I was a waitress. So he asked me to take his car to the car wash. So, anyways, and he had a different colored car then, different car. uh, so he always started his car with the driver's side door open. Uh, I don't know what explosive device it was, but he lost his leg that night in the explosion. Had he probably closed the door and started the car, he would have been dead. Um, I don't know what kind of explosive it was. There was an article in the paper about it, and I never read it, and I don't know who the reporter or the writer was of the article or the newspaper. Now, my boyfriend, who I later married, Richard Joseph Dick Toucher, who I married in Las Vegas on May 8th, 1977, he took me, this is mid 1970s, he took me to see Mike in the hospital. When we approached his room, he was laying on his right side with the covers off. And that is when I saw his leg amputated. It was around by the knee. Um, and he covered up quickly after that, after we came in the room. I said to Mike, I'm very sorry about what happened, even though I didn't know why. Until this day, I don't know why. I never read the article in the paper either about it because I searched for the article later, like I searched for that article about Pine Knob when I was on the stage with Andy Williams. So um, I said to Mike, I'm sorry about what happened. I did not see Mike again at Michael G's. I continued to work at Michael G's. After Michael G's, I went to work at John John's on Mound Road in Warren, Michigan. Okay, page 4, last page. Um, it was the early days of working at Michael G's. I met a patron. His name was James, Jim for short, Cott. Believe it was Kott. He owned a food distribution building on 8 Mile where they made sandwiches. I wasn't married yet. This is the mid 1970s. Even though I met Richard Joseph Dick Toucher at Benson, I met my husband at Benson's Lounge, Go-Go Bar. One afternoon, Jim Cott took me to lunch at the Macus Red Fox in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Oh, Bloomfield Township, Michigan. This was the mid 1970s, around time that uh, the former president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, James Jimmy Riddle Hoffa, went missing on July 30th, 1975. Now, last week I learned that Jimmy Hoffa wrote 2 books. The first one in 1970, an autobiography titled The Trials of Jimmy Hoffa, and the second book, 1975 book, Hoffa, The Real Story. I recently purchased the 1975 book, used hardcover, Hoffa, The Real Story. And I'm starting to read it today. In the back of the book, there is a epilogue titled Bumper Sticker, an epilogue by Oscar Freire. I did not know who Oscar Freire was, but he was the co-author of Eliot Ness's 1957 memoir book, The Untouchables. I purchased Hoffa, The Real Story from Thrift Books Phoenix. And that's the last page, number 4. So that's where I worked in the 70s. And I didn't know Hoffa, Jimmy Hoffa at all. Here's the book that I got. And this is side, and it's the front. I don't know if it had a cover to it, but I didn't come with a cover. It's a used book, so it's got photographs in it too. Um, it's got Jimmy Hoffa on there, R. Hoffa and Oscar Freire written out right there. Going back to Ethel's book, Ethel Kennedy, Robert Kennedy's wife. It doesn't have photos and it doesn't have an index. Either does Hoffa's book have an index. It doesn't have an index. And it's a memoir, so they're both memoirs actually, or not memoirs. This is a biography written by somebody else about Ethel Kennedy. And this is a book that Jimmy Hoffa wrote himself with the epilogue from Oscar Freire. So that's the story. Um, you can decide for yourself what happened with me meeting and being a fan of Andy Williams, singer, um, and back then in the 70s, and how much older he was than me. And then seeing him again in Florida about 10 years later, 1982, I think. I'm not sure it was 82, but it was 1972 that I met him on stage when I jumped on the stage. Uh, and it was like that movie out of that scene out of the movie Star Trek, The Voyage Home, where uh, the character uh, Captain Kirk tells Scotty to beam him up aboard the ship, and that's when the character, the actress Gillian's character, the Gillian character name, uh, puts her arms around him. That's kind of like what happened on the stage. So, anyways, and then he took me back to the dressing room, and then I drew me a map, his bodyguard or whoever that was with him, um, and enforcement or something, and he probably didn't expect me to show up at the hotel, but Ron took me there, and then he picked me up the next morning, and the rest is history. um, and so I guess I'll say goodbye, and that's all I have to say about the two books that I'm going to read. The Hoffa book starting today, October 7th. Today is October 7th on a Tuesday, 2025, and this is Joanne Marie Rumford in Port Huron, Michigan. Have a nice week, rest of the week. I'm going to turn this off now. Bye now.